Black cisgender heterosexual identified men are killing Black trans women. Black ones.
We are not talking about it in the church.
Those street guys are already engineers. If they're mixing drugs and stuff together, they're chemical engineers.
If you're just like, yeah, let's kill 50 cops just because, you know, that's only a fraction of the Black people that they killed. Wait, now you're talking about my wife.
For those of you who are joining in, we are talking about just the housing in the Black community and owning property, why it's important, and how to get yourself in there.
When I think of financial literacy, I just don't think of the classroom work. I think some of it is practical application.
I'm scared, especially, you know, calling them to arms, talking about poll workers or poll watchers. That is rooted in history of voter suppression and intimidation.
Joe Biden needs to make that a part of his educational platform.
Call that shit out.
I don't see much value in you speaking in tongues, and yet when you speak in English, you don't say nothing for my people.
Many of the reasons why we're dying is because of the conditions we live under that cause our health to be so bad, and that cause it's the food, it's the water, it's clean that shit up first.
When their fathers have prostate cancer, I had like a 150% chance of getting cancer, being diagnosed with cancer. I had a friend that did a raw vegan diet, 20 years remission, had thyroid cancer, never had surgery. I'm like, that's what I'm doing.
This week in Black People Shit, Election 2020, Black Votes in the Year of Chaos. I'm your host, Chrystee Pharris. As our election cycle comes to an end, this year has been nothing short of chaotic. With a pandemic monster still looming over us, racial tensions as high as ever, and political strife on both sides of the aisle. This election has had the ups and downs of an episode of Lovecraft Country. So now that we have to wait for the results to come in, today we'll examine the ins and outs of yesterday's election and how it unfolded. With me, as always, is an actress who's as smooth as cashmere, Janora McDuffie, and a writer who is tougher than leather, Abdul Majid. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this episode right now. And if you'd like to get in on the conversation, join us in the chat because we would love to hear from you. So I see people are coming in. Team No Sleep. I hear you.
Hey, Shanae.
You. Oh man, I am so. Everybody's like, nope. Oh, so it look like some people.
Yeah, hey, Cabrini.
Yeah, it look like some people got some sleep in there.
And hey, Yolanda.
Hey, thanks for coming in, you guys. So let's get started here. Yesterday, as you guys know out there, was our national election, but due to mail-in ballots and the counting that actually didn't take place until the day of the election. And then, of course, we had the COVID-19 protocols and more Americans voting this year than ever before. Our election process will take longer than usual. So, what are your thoughts on yesterday's election? And do you think the mood of this country will change now that the people have spoken? Ooh, let's start with you, Janora.
Start with me. Okay, let's get this party off because there's so much to unpack and talk about with these shenanigans. Daggone it. I wanted today to be happy. I wanted today to be a day that we could be excited about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, us having the first female vice president, first female of color, like, yes, represent. But I swear they make it hard to have a good time, y'all. Because regardless, we are pushing for that victory, but regardless, what today and yesterday revealed is how divided we are. So it don't matter who gets that seat. It reveals that we are such a divided nation. And that's even talking about who gets the seat. Let's talk about like the peaceful transition of power, because clearly Orange Man is showing that he ain't giving up this easy. And he's got his legal troops ready to invalidate what are legal votes. So it's just starting in terms of this fight. And again, so many different layers. But my last thing is, let's just say we get his ass out. And we've got Joe and Kamala there. Now it's time to start again. We put y'all in there. What are you going to do for the votes, for us standing with y'all, for us riding with y'all so deep? Then it becomes that work. So I am just like, I'm just overwhelmed. I want to be excited, and there are exciting moments, but I tell you, it's a cold, cold world.
Man, yeah. I mean, yesterday was one of those days where I wasn't stressed in the very beginning until I started watching the news, and they kept saying, you know, everybody's stressed out today, and then I started to feel the anxiety, and then I was trying to calm down, but I felt like my heart was starting to like go a little crazy. So, you know, I had to go and take a walk and do all that kind of stuff, because at the end of the day, we knew we weren't going to get the results last night. I think he's not going to lose gracefully. I think it's so important for him, if he does lose, if the orange man loses, it is so important for him to give a speech with grace, as opposed to starting up a civil war. And if he doesn't say the right things, then this whole entire nation is going to go crazy. And I think that's what he wants. I think he wants this nation to go crazy. And I think that's where I have the most fear and what I'm scared about. And then I just look at his family. I'm like, you are setting your family up to, like, your whole family lies with you. And that's the legacy that you guys are going to, you know, leave. But anyway, how about you, Abdul Majid?
I wasn't nervous either way. I'm sort of, I care about what the elections happen. And I do care about, my primary focus is always Black people, right?
Yeah.
So that's why this show's called Black People Shit. So I know and I keep saying this, and I know it might get repetitive, but in the last several elections, going back to like for a while, even if we just want to start with the 80s, no matter what happens, Black people do worse. Mm-hmm. I'm talking, just look at the numbers. You don't have to agree with me. Just look at the numbers for all the things pertaining to Black people. Black people tend to do worse from the last administration, the administration before that, the administration before that. So is there a possibility that there might be a civil war? I don't know. I don't know. If what's named decides not to leave, or leaves the hard way, or there's a possibility he could push the agenda. I think that's possible. But my concern is Black people pushing their issues, and Black people pushing, regardless of who's in office, whether it be locally or nationally or what have you, that we push our agenda to get the things that we need. Because I don't know if we'll get a moment like the one we've been having, where we have a wind behind our back that will enable us to get certain things across. I think at this time, people are really listening to what we have to say, whether it be the Black women's issue, Black males issue, issues about jail, issues about reparations, issues about the LGBTQ plus community. I think we have the wind at our sail, and if we mess up this time around, like we did post 64, 65, where we fumbled the ball a little bit, mm-hmm. or even post the Million Man March, even post, like, I think we're not gonna get this moment unless there's a civil war. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, right. we're at the edge of a civil war that giving us momentum. And the only thing that's if we don't use this moment the way we should, then it's gonna take a civil war for us to get the things that we need.
Before you jump in, Janora, I mean, and the reason why I bring up the whole Civil War thing, and there's a couple of things that are on here that the audience has posted, so I'll post that as well. But the reason why I bring up the Civil War, because 66 million people voted for Trump. And as I'm seeing all of these videos of, even how they followed the Biden bus and had them surrounded. I had another friend that was at a convenience store this morning where they called him like a nigger, just out of the blue. Like, he was like, I'm at the convenience store, and the dude gets, you nigga, da 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 da, and just goes off on him. And he's just sitting here going like, okay, wait, what? This is the day after the election. This is today. So it's little things like that I'm afraid of. But you're right, Abdul. I do feel like if we don't jump on the bandwagon now for the things that we deserve to have, then we're not going to get this opportunity for a while. Go ahead, Janora, and then I'm going to...
Well, we've never been in this space in time before. So no, in terms of 80-90% of Black folks, not even just putting someone in office, but having a plan presented beforehand and pushing and in the light of Black Lives Matter, like, no, I'm with you, Abdul, as in that we've got the wind, we've got the momentum. And I think we got the right people to see it through. I'm always going to see things as hopeful.
Well, hold on. Who are the right people?
Between Trump and Pence and Harris and Biden, of course, Harris and Biden. It's not even a question. And we better pray that it really does turn out to be that way, because I tell you, if Trump stays in office, God forbid, he's going to look at those numbers and be like, Black folks, I'm still here and y'all didn't vote for me, so I really ain't got to do nothing for you. Right. You know, he's on that petty train, and he's going to look at the demographics, and he's also going to look at the states. He's going to say, California, you don't need this federal funding because you didn't have my back. And he's proven to play that card in other instances. So I believe that we have the deck stacked in our favor, the momentum behind us to be able to make these changes in the Black community that we've been talking about. I think now is our time, and you can't make a case but Black women and men, Abdul, being a huge factor with the Biden-Harris ticket winning.
Okay.
I think that, so we all know that Lyndon Baines Johnson was a well-known segregationist.
Yes,
and in the Democratic Party at the time, 64, 63, there were well-known segregationists.
Yes.
So I'm not saying Trump is anything great. I'm not saying he's anything great. I personally, from a personal standpoint, I do not like the gentleman or his administration or the things that they've done. But I don't care. I just want us to be able to negotiate with who's ever there. Now, will Biden and Harris negotiate with us better than the Trump administration? There's a likelihood, yes. There is a likelihood, yes. But there is a likelihood, no, because they're not progressives. And the things that we need are progressive issues. The thing that their standpoint is law and order measures. If you look at the things that they talk about, they're even in their Lift Every Voice plan, it's not specific to Black people. It's coded with all the code, the switching that they've done for years.
So let me just ask you, Abdul, what specifically do you think that we should be getting? What specifically do you think that, that would make things all right with Black people? And what the new administration should do?
I think that, well, okay, let's just say we'll start with reparations. I believe that's necessary. I believe it's a debt that's past due. I believe you look at something like mortgage loans, where the Black community doesn't even get a tenth of the mortgage loans. They get such low mortgage loans. I think we should get mortgage loans closer to proportional of our demographics. I think that they take a lot of money out of our community and put it in other communities. I think those corporations should invest in the this is from corporate side, I guess. So let's just sans that. I believe there should be police reform. I believe they should vote in HR 40 just to study reparations. How about we start with that? That thing's been on the docket for like the last 30 some odd years. I think that would help. I think more infrastructure in our communities. I think that funding HBCUs more. I think even funding Black-centered charter schools would help. I think that there's like a ton of things on the list.
So let me ask you, Janora, because I know that you don't believe in reparations.
Wait, that was going to be where I was going.
Okay.
I believe in everything Abdul said, but call it what you want to call it. I feel like calling it reparations is giving a lot of people a reason to tone it down and say no. What I believe in all of those investments in terms of the community, whether it's business, whether it's education, that's the way to go. And if I have to forego an individual stimulus check or a reparations check that's similar to the stimulus check that I got that I can't tell you where the money is, no, give me that library in the community. And I think we get so caught up on semantics that we're missing the opportunity.
So
to invest, and that opportunity has been put in the plan, Abdul.
I still think that we should get reparations. I do believe that, I know that's something that you don't believe. I believe that we should take it and put it in the community as well as giving it to individual people, like they have done almost every single other race out there.
I think if you look at something like the Supreme Court in their last vote against the Civil Rights Act of 1865, I believe it was, the language was what made them turn it down. The Civil Rights Act of 1865 stated that you cannot prohibit the sale or usage of business with Black people. It had to be across the board. You cannot ostracize Black people from doing business. There was specific language in there that made it that Black people benefited from it. Specificity matters. Specificity matters so much that a little word such as and or the can change the definition of a word in law, especially in contract. So when you're looking at something like reparations, it has to be stated that it's specific to a specific group of people during a specific set of times, or it's going to happen like the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act, white women benefited more from the Civil Rights Act than any other group of people. That's a fact, because Howard Smith stuck them in the language at the last minute. Asians, they sued Harvard recently because they felt that it was unfair that they were having too many Black kids in the school as opposed to Asians because of the Civil Rights Act. So the language has to be written in a specific way to direct the money to that specific group. When they made when Ronald Reagan paid affirmative action for the Japanese Americans that happened to them in 1940, that he paid in 1989, there was specific language in there. It didn't say Asians, because that means Koreans, Chinese. That it made specific to the specific group of people at a specific time, and that's why they specifically got the money. Language is more important, especially in law, than at any other space. And we need to be specific about the things that we say, or we won't get it, or it will go to everybody else the same way everything else that says minority goes to everybody else but us.
And hold on. I just want to add to just like, especially too, because Yoli and you guys you're on here and you guys deal with the real estate. But there was recently on the news, they were talking about, I want to say in Pasadena, where there's all these areas where it specifically says that you can sell the house, but you cannot sell it to a person of color, that you could not sell it to a Black person. And it's those little things that you're talking about, the language that's in these contracts that, things need to be changed. Go ahead, Janora. And then I want to make sure I get to some of these people that have commented. And TC, I saw you on there. I was going to bring you in, but I wanted to finish the conversation. But if any of you guys that are out there that would like to join the conversation, go ahead and click the link that is in the feed. Come on in. Just make sure that you have your camera on. All right, go ahead, Janora.
So my last question, because two things. One, we are putting the cart before the horse. We got to get in office first. We got to make sure that happens. So I don't want to skip over the reason that this episode exists, to talk about all the shenanigans going on with the election. So we have to get in Biden and Harris first. And fine, God forbid, Orange Man is still there. We have to still have a plan to move forward. But I know that this reparations conversation gets hot and heavy and juicy with us. So then my question, Abdul, Ice Cube, Majid, is how in the world, I agree that language is very important. How are you going to identify all the people that should get reparations? Because few of us came straight from the boat, or direct descendants from the boat. We've all been mixed with everything else. And you have some white people walking around that might be closer to coming from the boat, but they've been mixed in, or black people that are not from the United States, but are now African American because of the generations they've been here, but their family didn't go through slavery. How, I guess, Socratic method. How do you plan to do that, Abdul?
Okay,
How would you do that?
Before you answer that, Abdul, for the because my mother worked on the Native American reservation when they were doing when they got those casinos, and they literally do a bloodline through all of them to make sure that they are part of this particular Native American thing, and that's how. So they do it.
Do you think the government is going to pay for every black person to get a blood test? No, that's more than the reparations.
It's a little bit simpler. It's a little bit simpler than that. So, the way that people like the economist Dr. Sandy Darity has it written up in his specific ADOS stuff, the same way with the language that they added to the California bill, HR AB 3121, that was for reparation in California. It had to do with lineage. It had to do with the census. The last 10 years, how did you identify yourself? It has to do with the lineage that you can link back to ancestry prior to coming to this country. The things that people keep forgetting is that prior to 1980, there weren't a lot of African or Caribbean people in this country. As of 1980, on the nose, there were only 880,000 people, immigrants, black immigrants in this country, but there were 26 million black people in this country. So between and then if you go back in time, you can go back to 1940, there was only like 180,000. Prior to that, 1920, there was 10 million black people, only like 45,000 descendants from Caribbean, what have you. So the point is, it's not hard to do your lineage to go back. If you base it on the census, if you base it off on the one good thing, and I don't want to say it's a good thing, but the one thing that happened through slavery, and this is not me saying this as an opinion, this is an actual fact, is that their documentation was so strong because it was a bill of sale and a bill of goods that it's actually easy, if you follow the money back, to see where people's family came from. And this is not me saying this. You could look at the Harvard professor, what's his name, who does all the lineage stuff.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
They can go all the way back to the first person that was sold due to the documentation of money sold. There are books upon books upon books of people. And I'm just saying, all you have in the language, it says all you need is one parent that is of African descendants from original people through slavery.
And that's how they deal with the Native American. That's how they deal with
you only need one parent.
And all I'm saying is think about all the black folks that we know, including myself, that wishes they could tell you more than their great grandmama. We had an oral history, like not a written one. And that's half the reason. That's half the reason we don't have the voter ID law for older generations who don't even have a birth certificate. I feel like maybe we should just do a show on reparations and get back to the election. This has been a very fiery and great conversation, but let's talk about what's going on right now.
Important. Hold on one second. I do think that this is a very important conversation. That's why I asked the question. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. But and we do need to get back to the election part. But I think I don't know. It's so interesting that you just don't want to do reparations, which I think is so interesting. But
I don't want to give folks a check. No, I want to put that money, because that again is how am I going to decide who gets it? I want to put that money in education. I want to put that money for us to move forward in businesses.
Why is it an all or nothing proposition?
Because
why can't we have money set aside for education and money set aside for people to get personal checks? Because the one thing that we're forgetting is that the reason we're saying that they put a price on us. They put a price on human bodies. So why can't those same descendants of those human bodies get a check? Like, you want to give it to everything else other than the people. And I don't understand it.
How is investment in
But
I would rather give loan forgiveness or student debt forgiveness than a check. I want to make sure.
Right, but what about the people who haven't gone to school, who don't have loans?
Then there's a way. Then let's let them call Shanae and Yolanda and get some mortgage help or something. There are ways around.
Determine how I should be able to spend the money that I will be getting. Why should someone else say, well, I don't think you're going to use this money in the right way? That's the reason.
Why can't you do both? Why is it an all or nothing proposition? Why are
we still talking about reparations? Let's talk about the election, because we really can spend like 2, 3, 4 shows, 4 hours talking more about this. And not that it is important, but we have to get people in office first. And we are at a state where we don't even know what's going to happen tonight. That's what I want to talk. That's why I showed up to talk to y'all today.
So I will add on.
Thank you, Louis Gates Jr. Thank you.
So if you look at, there's a comment that
I want to go back to a lot of these comments
that Tim said, if we don't get the House or the Senate, it's a no starter. And I don't believe that to be true. I don't believe that to be true. I don't believe that to be true, because they said the same thing when the Democrats were in office for the Civil Rights Act, that Lyndon Baines Johnson wouldn't sign it. And it should start, to be honest with you, we should start on the state level. The same way California did it, the same way North Carolina did it. There's ballots coming up, and I believe, is it Georgia? Or they're trying to talk about reparations in Georgia and other states. So it should be national. It should be a national conversation. It should be federal money, but there should also be state money, and then there should also be reparations paid by corporations who used the same way that the Jewish Americans or the Jewish people sued a train station and got some crazy $200 some odd million for the transportation of Jewish people to the internment camp, and they got money for that. Is the same way we should be suing companies in this country for the things for slave labor. So my point is that it's just, yes, the Senate matters, and yes, looking at the numbers now, I believe the Senate, the Democrats are 45, the Republicans are at 48. Within the Senate, that matters. That matters a lot to get a lot of bills passed. But I think on the state level, there's a lot we can do as well. And no matter who's in office, we should push that agenda.
All right. So let me just hit some of these so people can see. Yeah, we going off. We talk about reparations. It seems to be a never-ending conversation.
Yeah.
Yes, we on a change. We do need Olivia Pope. She was, she agreed with something. Kathy, thank you. That was, I don't know why I just pushed that one. Thank you, Tangerine, for being on. I'm going to go gracefully. I agree. Let's see. What we need is people. Very true.
I agree.
And then, of course, Tangerine said they definitely want us to have a civil war. Hey,
Kendra.
Yay, serve behind Trump was scary. These people are fired up, and it's not going to go. They're not going to go away quietly. I agreed. Tim said, how ironic that the Black votes in the urban centers of Atlanta, Detroit, Milwaukee, and Philly are deciding the next president. Black lives and Black votes matter, and the Democrat Party better stop taking those votes for granted. It's a very, very, very good point. Thank you, Chris, for joining. Biden has more popular votes than any candidate in history so far, 500,000 more than Obama, and the counting isn't finished. I think this speaks loud to the community of the American people. They surely don't give a crap. So I'm just trying to make sure that I got through the ones. Unfortunately, we already read this one. You're talking her language. Gregory, reparations and what does that say? Restitution? Yeah, we won't get it until you declare a nationality. Is that what it says? Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I'm at a place now in my life where I need glasses, but I don't want to wear them on the thing yet. So So yeah, but no, thank you everybody who is who's on here, who's giving out their information. We'll jump to the next one. I just want to make sure that that I jump to some of these things that you guys said. Black Negroes and colored African American is all a colonized race. Missing who we are before 1492 were the indigenous people of America.
That's not exactly true, but I'll go with you. I'll leave it alone.
Okay. All right. So moving on to what we have next. So we had some local elections, you guys. Local elections are equally, if not more important than national elections. From marijuana legislation to union laws, local elections can affect your everyday life in drastic ways. So is there any ballot initiative that was passed yesterday that stood out to you? Go ahead and put it in the comments as well. I'll start with you, Abdul. Was there anything?
So from my home state of Jersey, they legalized weed. So I think that if they did it the way California did it, and they set it up where I believe there's a provision for people who sold weed in California, they get to jump to the beginning of the line in order to get a what's it called, a dispensary, things of that nature. I think California, you know, I just like the fact that brothers might be able to get something from selling marijuana, as opposed to all those years of putting them in jail for slight charges like 94 crime bill, but we won't talk about that, about Biden. I do think there's a couple other ones I looked at that I thought were really interesting, so I'm just going to read them. I thought the fact that Puerto Rico voted like by 51% for statehood, I thought that was really interesting because for a long time they didn't want to be part of the United States. They just wanted to be their own what they refer to as. My brain's blanking out. I've been up all night. What's another one that I saw that was Colorado. They said that they voted for the winner of the popular vote will get the electoral college. I thought that was interesting. I hope a lot of other states go down that same road where it's the winner of the popular vote gets the electoral college. And the other one I thought was interesting is Oregon approved a bill to decriminalize possessions of drugs such as cocaine, heroin, and methamphetamines. So small things of cocaine possession and heroin possession and methamphetamine possessions will be decriminalized. And I thought that was interesting. That reminded me a little bit of Amsterdam and things. Either Amsterdam's more, but it seems like that's the gateway to what a lot of people want to have happen with the decriminalization of drugs. Now, I want to know, the only thing that I'm concerned about is the crack cocaine disparity. So if the word crack isn't in the legislation, does that matter? Because crack is made from cocaine, but you know, it never really mattered before. So I'm really interested to find out what's going on with that one.
Right. Kathy Bryan just said, why did they not let 17-year-olds who will be 18 by the time the election vote in the primary here in California?
That was a good one too. Yeah, I thought that was a good one.
Yeah, I actually voted for that, for them to be able to vote. But yeah, I was kind of.
One last thing. Florida is jumping up their minimum wage to $15 an hour by 2026, and they're going to start at $10 next year, and then every year go up $1 until it gets to $15 an hour, which I thought was a good thing. I want to see how it works out, but I thought that was a good thing as well.
Yeah, and my biggest thing was just, you know, the men and women who have been incarcerated being able to vote. And of course, we talked about it before on the show where LeBron James paid for inmates who have gotten out, who've done their time, to be able to vote by paying off their debt because they had to pay off a fine. So that was one of the ones that was a big one for me. But you were going to go ahead, Janora.
Yeah, so living here in California, we definitely had some hot ones on the list. The one Kathy mentioned about 17-year-olds voting. I think that one didn't pass because probably people misunderstood it and they put their own bias that they have against the youth on it. Like, what does a 17-year-old know? Or wait till they start paying bills. But no, it's about getting people excited to engage in voting early. And it's, I think also some people didn't understand what the primary or what that particular measure was talking about. Yeah. That one was just saying if they're going to be 18 by the general election, let them vote in the primary. Exactly. So it wasn't anything weird. It was let them be part of who they're going to vote for during the general election. So that was disappointing for me. But the other ones in California that I think were super important and super heartbreaking as well. Another one that failed was Proposition 16 that would allow for affirmative or overturn Prop 209, which was about affirmative action. So in other words, allowing gender and race to be considered when it comes to education, employment. And I think that's really important. And for that one as well, I think it was misunderstood. It wasn't saying it's going to be used. It was saying it will allow it to be part of the conversation if an institution chooses to use it. And right now it's against the law. So for example, I spoke with a dope group of students at Cal State Fullerton last week. One of the advisors was on the call and she specifically talked about wanting to recruit female professors and professors of color, but under this law, they cannot. Like they have to go way around it to try to make something happen. But what's wrong with that? What's wrong with diversity and being able to pursue it? So that one was really disappointing that didn't pass. The repeal up, yep, up, yes, yep. So a couple other ones. You mentioned this one, Chrystee, about Prop 17 that was allowing parolees the right to vote. And different states have different levels. And the one in Florida you talked about with LeBron had a fine attached. So at least California doesn't have any kind of monetary bias to keep folks down from voting. But I think, again, this is exciting, or it was exciting to me. I was listening to a podcast and Common was on it, and Common is really involved when it comes to prison reform. And he talked about the brother he was working with that had just gotten out. And when he told him that he now has the right to vote, he said you could just feel his spirit lift, like you just gave him part of his manhood back, or his just to feel like he was truly part of the community and truly was getting his rights back. So I support that. And then when you hear personal stories like that, it makes sense. Proposition 25, that is ending cash bail. So I know, although again, this is just on the California ballot, that is a conversation we're having all over when it comes to, again, prison reform. While the poor folks got to stay, while the rich people who can pay for bail are the ones that are able to get out. Right now in California, it is too close to call. So that could go either way. However, what's really interesting about that particular proposition is that groups like NAACP and Black Lives Matter are like, no. And that's because the system that they want to replace it with is like a computerized algorithm system that, measures flight risk or the crime that you committed. It inputs all of that, and they think that it's one bias system that is replacing another bias system. So we will see how that ends up.
Yeah, that was a hard one just because I was like, wait a minute. So we're going to do it by like some computer system or a judge, or it was tough. But I did vote for it because I remember a story about a young man who was in New York. He didn't even do anything. I can't even remember specifically, but he didn't even do anything at all. But he went to Rikers and he was underage and they put him in jail. Abdul, you probably remember this story. Yeah. But he ended up going to jail. He was in there for a year or two, whatever it was. Then they tried to make him take a plea, 2 years. Then they tried to make him take a plea bargain, even though he didn't do anything, but he didn't have the money to get out on bail. And then because there was so much that was done to him in the prison system while he was there, when he finally got out, he committed suicide because he couldn't live with all the torment and all that stuff that happened to him. So the main reason why
Khalif Browder
for that, what was his name?
Khalif Browder.
Yes, I just remember watching that story and boo-hooing, and that was the reason why that I was like, well, look, if we can even fix it a little bit for the time being, then I'm going to vote for it. So
there's one that I'm watching because I think it has national implications, and I forgot to mention it earlier, but in Louisiana, they added language that stated that there is no, what does it say? There is no explicit right to abortion under the state law. So I think that's the pebble in the pond that's going to start the ripple for people to adding languages to abortion bills. And because we have now the Supreme Court the way it is, if it makes it all the way up to the Supreme Court, that's Roe v. Wade all over again. And with Amy Coney Barrett in there with her position and Clarence Thomas' position, and I don't know much about Brett Kavanaugh's position because he sort of might be the swing vote with regards to which direction it goes. And I see you looking at the face making like that, but he was the swing vote for the Civil Rights Act of 1865. It was him who pushed it pushed it down to the circuit court with his vote. So I think that that's going to be an interesting one to watch, and I think people better get on it and not overlook the fact that it starts small. It always starts small, then it makes its way up to the Supreme Court. So I think that's one that people need to really pay attention to.
So what do you guys out there? I want to go back to the election and Trump. And of course, Trump is trying to sue like Michigan for the votes because he wasn't allowed to be there. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think it's going to go to the Supreme Court? Do you think that all that stuff is going to go, or do you think it's just all a bunch of BS?
Yes, Gorsuch as well. Thank you. I think that the way I understand the way the law goes is that a state has to be the one. He can't do it himself. It has to be a state that has to challenge the voting count. So it can't be him alone. So there's possibly within the states that are there now. The way it looks now, the way I've just looked on my phone to see what the number was, is that if any state were to challenge the voting, it would have to be at this point Nevada, because based on what I just saw, that Biden is 6 points away from winning the presidency because it's now at 264 to 214 or 218, something like that. So if he wins Nevada, and Nevada's leaning because I think he has like an 8,000 vote lead, that they might be able to want to push it, because I don't know if Pennsylvania looks like it might go Trump anyway. The Carolinas already, all the swing states except for Michigan and Wisconsin went the way that it went in the last election. So
yeah, it just seems like he's the only ones that he wants to take to the Supreme Court are the ones that he's losing on. Go ahead, Janora. Did you want to say something?
Yes, I definitely echo Abdul. There are already rules in place, and he can't just make up rules that he just wants to have just for this moment in time. No, there is a structure that's in place, and I do believe that at least that part will be followed. What's really important is that we just make sure we count every vote, because we know that the majority of the folks who vote early, especially, I mean, it's a pandemic. Of course, if you are worried about bringing something to your grandma, or being a person of color, or being somebody that ain't got no insurance, I'm gonna mail that joker in, right? So that affects us. And so every vote needs to absolutely be counted. And in terms of Trump wanting to have his people there too, bring them on. Let's all count these together so that we can, so that you have no more excuses. You are running out of excuses of why you're about to lose. So I think it's okay, because again, already a conspiracy theory, because remember, we talked about watching different news outlets. So today I was watching a little bit of Fox News, and that was part of the conversation about a conspiracy of we can't see them and what's really going on. Let us all be transparent. And when you count all those ballots that are absentee ballots or mail-in ballots, then we all can come to the same math. So that doesn't bother me at all.
And in states like Georgia, they have to be counted last anyway. Like there are laws that states like Georgia and I think maybe South Carolina and a couple other ones that say you can't even count the mail-in ballots or the other ones until the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
you have to do the in-person first, and then you
have to do the in-person first, and then the thing I thought was crazy was the thing that we didn't even bring up was the fact that he declared himself the victory last night.
Yeah.
Like he just went out and said, "I won."
Who does that? Who does that? Yeah, I mean, he's really desperate. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then I was just going to say that clip that circulated today on the internet with Bernie
Sanders.
Saying what was going to happen is what's happening. He declared victory. All his folks were like, "Yay!" Today he's going to claim foul play because of these miscounted votes. But there are already votes that are missing. What the United States Postal Office has to be swept for, and that's in the hundreds of thousands of votes missing. So we just need to make sure that every vote counts, and that there is a system that is established on the state level where it is done in a way where both sides agree. Because once the Biden-Harris ticket clearly shows not just the popular vote, but getting those electoral votes, and stop talking to me. I won. These are rules. Why?
And it's also interesting. I was because Fulton County, I know Atlanta, majority of these little areas are mostly black voters. I believe a lot of them are Democrats. And I was, of course, I don't know if you guys heard, but in Georgia, at one of the locations that they were doing a lot of the voting, and it was a huge stadium, like a basketball place, right? It's a basketball, right, Abdul? Like a basketball?
Yeah, it was a basketball stadium, yeah.
Yeah, and so...
Pipe busted, yeah.
Yeah, and so the pipe busted in the location, and of course, being a Democrat, or independent, whatever you want to call it, of course, I was like, oh, wow, that is some straight voter suppression. But it was interesting because I was on somebody who was black who supports Trump, and she was saying that it was voter suppression from the Democrats. So it's interesting to see everybody's perspective of what's going on out there. And I just wonder in the end, do you think we will all be able to come together? Will we be able to be friendly to one another once again at some point in time when all of this is said and done?
I think so at some point. But I really want to know, when are we going to talk about white women and Latinos voting for Trump? Like no one spoke about that. The fact that like in this election, after everything that's been said and done, they still voted for them because, and I'm coming from this perspective, from a black male perspective, who has been getting bashed for the last couple of weeks because several celebrities decided to vote for Trump and or looked like they were going to vote for Trump or came out and voted for Trump, even though the majority of black men vote for the Democratic Party and did in this election as well. Mm-hmm. And we're getting the blame left and right, and no one spoke about white women or Latino vote or the Asian vote and how there are 30% Latin Asians voting for this person. But like, when are we going to have that conversation?
Yeah, because I don't think Cubans, I was talking to Tim about it, and I want to say Cubans, Tim, if I'm incorrect, please post it in there. But he was saying that they don't identify as being
Latin. They consider themselves white, yeah.
Yeah, they not Latino, nothing. And so so I thought that was interesting. A majority of them in Florida voted for Trump. They are definitely Trump supporters and fans. Did you want to say anything?
And hold up, let me finish. The only reason I even bring it up is because accountability is important. And if we're going to heal as a collective, we need to put all the cards on the table and talk about what's really going on. Because when it comes to our community, they'll put out every card. You didn't do this. You didn't. And then their stuff that they did gets swept under the rug. So if we really wanted to come to some reconciliation, we got to talk about it all across the board. And why are people voting against their own best interest?
I agree. Go ahead, Janora.
Yeah, I want to make sure that I don't want to lump anybody in any kind of category. And I personally don't know enough Cubans to say how they feel or what they do. And I think everybody votes for something different. And I do think part of all of, whether it's white women, whether it's Latinos, the Latinx community, part of it, I think, is misinformation. For example, I really feel like words like they're going to be socialist or whatever as a trigger word for maybe the Cuban community, and misinformation in terms of all that stuff Trump was talking about is the suburbs. You don't want the projects coming right next to your neighborhood.
Yeah.
Misinformation, and then that whole dog whistle of, that's some racist bullshit. So, but there's also, and I want to give light to the people. Well, yes, always come from love. I want to recognize that some people might think Trump is the biggest asshole ever, but if they think that they can bring home more money at the end of the day, that's what's most important to him. So I don't want to lump all Trump supporters as they are these racist individuals. I mean, although, like, if you want to connect some dots and lines, and make a case for it, but I'm saying that people vote for different reasons, and I just always want to be aware of making generalizations and speaking for people that I might not know personally.
No, the thing I'm speaking on specifically is that
the people who voted collectively, whether you be a person of Latin descent voting for Trump, Asian descent voted for Trump, or women voting for Trump, all those categories or subcategories considered minorities. And they benefit from all of the things that Republican administration have been trying to repeal, whether it's been civil rights acts, whether it's been laws. So why are they under a heading that they benefited from? They specifically use these things in lawsuits. They use these things to get in school. They use these things to get equal opportunity programs, all these other things. They use all of these things that Black people help progress. It come across, invent, however you want to decide to put it. And then they specifically vote against their own personal interests, because everything that those civil rights acts go for are things that they specifically benefit for. Like I said earlier, white women benefited from the Civil Rights Act more than any other group of people.
I agree. And I am also baffled, like, why a Mexican would want to vote for Trump. You just called all my people racist. You put my folks in cages, separate them at the border and put them in cages. Like, I don't understand that, but maybe that is the key to healing. And this is just me trying to figure it out loud. First time I'm saying it, but it's got to be about finding the common ground of understanding. I am gonna remain hopeful that something's got to get better. Because otherwise, what's the alternative? We just live in two separate Americas? Like, no, like there's got to be a plan and a hope for reconciliation of some kind. It doesn't necessarily have to be tomorrow, but like some kind of plan to bring us together. And I do think that plan has to do with finding where's our common ground. What can we agree upon? And then, you know what? If I've got my Mexican American friend in the room, I can ask, why did you cast your vote that way? So approaching the conversation out of just curiosity versus the judgment, where that's where the beginning of the end happens. And you're in this corner and you're in this corner, and then we are where we are right now. So I'm going to keep hope alive. And then maybe that can be part of Biden-Harris plan of Reconciliation America. Let's figure out a way to bring it together. We have some hurdles because they haven't even announced who won. Then you got the lawsuits, and then you got Trump on the low calling out his Proud Boys to be ready. Maybe this is the time that he's got them standing by for. I don't know what's going to happen, but long term, let's keep hope alive.
Just what you gonna say, Chrystee?
Oh, well, I was going to bring up because you guys were talking about why some people vote for Trump because they care about the economy. And there was a poll that went out that said the people who support President Trump's most important issue to your vote, the economy was 62%, crime and safety was 17%, healthcare 8%, coronavirus 5%, racial inequality was 3%. For the people who were voting for Biden, the most important issues was racial equality, 36%, coronavirus was 27%, healthcare 13%, the economy 11%, and crime and safety 6%. So it's interesting what's important to both sides, and the economy is the most important on one side, and racial equality, it was like 3%. They don't really care about, that
Here's
whole
the
thing.
thing, though.
Go ahead.
So I think philosophically there might be a divide that is bigger than we can think of. I remember a couple of years ago, I read a book. I spoke to you about it, Chrystee, a while ago, called "What's Wrong with Kansas." In this particular book, this gentleman went to Kansas and asked the population of people, why did they vote against their self-interest? Because Kansas is a state that uses a lot of social services, welfare and housing and all these other things, but they constantly vote Republicans who are against all the things that they vote for, or all the things that they benefit from, whether it be food stamps or what have you. And the overall answer that they said was that they believed that when they got to the other side of this economic hurdle, that they wanted to be able to benefit from the rights that the Republicans were talking about. So even though they were poor now and didn't benefit from the rights that the Republicans were talking about, whether it be capital gains tax or things of that nature, when they got their windfall, they're going to get on the other side and want to be able to use those things, the tax codes, the tax laws, the things of that nature. So I think there's sort of, and I know you may not agree with the wording of this, and maybe this wording is a little crass, but I think there's a level of selfishness involved that is projected somewhere later on down the line. Like, I want to be able to get away with the stuff. I want to be able to get away with the crimes that these other people are getting away with when I decide to do a crime. And I think that's a philosophical difference, and I don't know if hugs and kisses are going to do it.
I'm not hugging and kissing. I'm talking. What's going on? Let's talk about it.
Andrea, talk about we are the world.
Well, I'm saying the alternative is that things just aren't going to work out. And then where do you move forward in that? I feel like there needs to always be some sort of hope that is had. And I know that we had that conversation and y'all told me I could keep my hope. But it's you got to have some people who stand for that and have bridge makers and dividers and or people who can bring people together to talk. Otherwise, I appreciate, Joseph, your comment about Black neighborhoods, Black police departments, Black schools. They said that integration was the worst thing to happen to Black folks, right? Yeah. But I feel like that's not the full story. Like, I get it. I get the power of collective unity, but I feel like who we are, like capital AR, transcends all of this, and that I am going to hold out for hope for a complete unity of all of us, and not just the Black folks.
Okay, so let me just say, I in no way, shape, or form believe in separation. I am 100% the kumbaya chick who loves the world, who loves people. I don't care, you white, Black. I had a friend right now that I talk to once a week or a couple of times a week who supports Trump. But I love her, you know what I mean? Like, I there's a couple of my friends. So I don't want you to think, or the audience to think, that I am not coming with love when I'm talking about all of this stuff. I just feel like, I don't know what your experience has been, Janora, or Abdul, or anybody else out there, but watching the things that have happened to family members and myself over the years, I truly believe that the reparations and the things that I feel like we deserve to have, I just feel like we deserve it. But I don't want, just because I talk about these things for Black people, it doesn't mean that I don't love and that I want us to be separated and that I feel like it should be about this. I just would like to have something that has an upper hand to help us get, especially the next generation, to have a little bit of a step up that's going to be helpful. Go ahead, Abdul.
So to Janora's point, so I'm not a segregationist at all. I'm extremely pro-Black. Doesn't mean that I'm anti-white. I do believe everybody, including those poor whites in Appalachia, the poor whites in Kansas and Kentucky that I spoke about earlier, also needs a lift up. But it's been proven statistically that when you help the bottom poor people, which is Black people, everybody benefits from it. But the thing that I do think has to happen, I remember years ago, another book that I'm about to bring up was George Wallace, the ex-governor of Alabama. He wrote a book, or a book was written about him, his autobiography. And towards the end of it, he was a staunch segregationist. He was vicious in his abuse of people. But towards the end of his life, he became an integrationist due to the kindness, because he got a stroke and was in a wheelchair or something to that effect. And due to the kindness of his service people, maids and the nurse and all the people were Black, that he turned a leaf and became an integrationist and started pushing for the rights of all people, specifically Black people. So I know it's possible. And I know that people can turn the corner. And I know that kindness, those generosities, the acts that those maids and nurses did for him is what really pushed him. And matter of fact, he went to a church and asked for forgiveness, and they embraced him in the second and third. So I know it's there, but he had to be pushed to get it. So I think that, yes, it's possible. Yes, I believe in it. Yes, I do believe love and kindness and forgiveness and repentance is necessary. But I do think they have to be pushed. And it's not just going to come with a kumbaya moment. You got to be pushed in a direction of rightness, of justice. Right. Justice doesn't come just by saying kind words, and sometimes they got to be pushed and confronted, and you got to look evil dead in the face. So,
yeah, we'll wait for her to come in. I'm gonna do there she is. So you kind of missed a little bit of the end. I wanted to make sure that you get a chance to respond. So just say a little bit of the ending, and then we're gonna get out of here, you guys. I don't know what you guys.
No, the only point I was making is that yes, love and kindness help, but you have to. Racism, evil has to be pushed, and you got to sort of look the devil in the eye and confront them with if you want to get justice and equality done.
Go ahead. And what were we going to say tomorrow?
That you said confront them, which means, well,
doesn't mean violence. You got to push them. You got to.
No. I wasn't saying violence. I was going to say just conversation, just like going back to my original. How can we figure out how to get along? But you're right. Like if it's a power structure that doesn't want to give it up, they ain't going to want to come to the table and have a conversation about it. So how do we mobilize ourselves? But how do we not lose hope? That's all I'm just trying to say is that I'm just not going to be like, oh, this country is divided now because of this. This is revealed all the racist people we have in the U.S. Well, this is just the world I'm gonna live in, and that's it. Like, no, that's not the choice I'm going to make. I'm gonna, Chrystee. In fact, it makes sense exactly what you said. It's about taking people as an individual and let me know you. Let me have a relationship with you. And because maybe on a grand scale, it's just too big to even comprehend. But one-on-one, we can do this. You talked about your friend who's a Trump supporter. That's your friend because of the relationship you have, because maybe they are kind, they are thoughtful. Let's start there. Like, let's not start with Trump, or damn it. Is that my internet going out again? See, Abdul, did you do that?
No.
I'm just saying there's hope, and I'm just trying to give an example of a tangible way that we could start, and that is just man in the mirror and then neighbor next door. Just start there. And I think that it's got to be something. It's got to do something. And yeah, again, keeping hope alive. Biden Harris 2020. We're gonna take this and we're gonna be positive and find the common ground and connection and love. And we're not gonna stay separated forever. At least not in the world that I choose to live in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, all of you guys who are watching the show, we're gonna end real soon, but. You know, the friendship that we have on this show, we all have our sides. Janora has, you know, her her side where it's all about love, and of course Abdul has his side where he's like, it's all about the Black people, we need to get ours. And I fall in the middle where, I definitely think that Black people can get what they need to get, but I also, which I'm sure, Abdul does as well, but I do believe in love, and I do believe, but I'm also at a place in my life where I feel like, I just feel like we got to start putting our foot down. Otherwise, in love, but we need to start putting our foot down. Otherwise, we're going to continue to keep, getting stomped on. So Tangerine said, Chrystee, this platform is awesome, and you're beautifully hosting some very important topics. Thank you, Tangerine. So you guys, before we go, because I know you guys we're a little bit over our time, we just want to get to our BPS person of the week, and it goes out to everyone who stepped up and helped those trying to vote yesterday. So if you guys didn't hear, yesterday's election had the biggest turnout in American history, but with that many people going to a limited amount of places, the probability of there being a few setbacks is very high. Luckily, we have good Samaritans willing to lend a helping hand in times of need, like Offset from the rap group Migos in collaboration with AXSD Media and the Lincoln Project, who traveled to 3 spots to Fulton and Gwinnett counties in Georgia to distribute food from Slutty, Vegan, and Big Dave's cheese steak to all of those people waiting in those long lines. Or Kansas City Chief quarterback Patrick Mahomes thought through his foundation, 50 and the Mahomies, who paid half the cost of the use of Arrowhead Stadium as a polling station. Then there's all of the poll workers and Uber drivers who donated their time, McDonald's, Krispy Kremes, and Boston Market, who gave out free food, Hertz Cars Rental, who gave free days, and countless other citizens and corporations I could mention who volunteered their services to make Election Day a little bit easier in these troubling times. Charles Dickens once said that no one is useless in this world who lightens the burden of others. So regardless as to who you voted for or what the outcome may be, remember that the people who voted for the party you're against is still your neighbor, so treat them as such. I'm your host, Chrystee Pharris, and that was This Week in Black People Show. Any last words you want to say, Janora?
Because Abdul is our awesome writer. You have a way with words, and the last sentence that you wrote for Chrystee sounded like a lot of love. Thank you, Abdul.
Yes. The problem though is are the other people who not watching this show who don't believe in Black people shit, are they the ones that are going to be in love? That's where we need to see.
Starts with us.
Go ahead.
That Charles Dickens quote was originally a quote by philosopher Claude von Clausewitz, who said, war is politics by other means. So it could either go the love way. War is politics by other means.
Oh, gotcha.
So everything all the love stuff we're talking about, we can't forget that this is geopolitical and economics, and politics is another language, and sometimes that language doesn't speak love.
And the beautiful thing about this country is we have the right to believe and to live in the way that we see fit. So I will stand in my own truth and not expect that from anybody else but me.
Thank you, Kashmir.
I hope it's contagious, but I can't control anybody. And then I think that's the importance or the power of a team, right? You need not all the same people with the same traits coming to the table. You need somebody with a strong force in love. You need somebody with a strong force in history and fight. You need somebody with a strong force of being able to communicate with the two. So that's team. And so I just stand in my own strengths, which is trying my best to see the best in everyone in every situation. And if it's hard, then me be part of bringing that about. So I ain't arguing with nobody. I absolutely think that everything is legitimate. Let's just form our team to make this change.
Can you do me one favor next week?
I'll have to think about it.
On the box where it says Janora McDuffie, can you change it to Kashmir Love?
I'll consider it.
Everybody who's out there, again, Abdul and I created the show to talk about the things that Black people have always wanted to talk about but didn't have a platform. We wanted to keep it real, but also come at an angle with a twist so that you understand not just about, oh, Black people, blah, 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 but understand the history of things behind it. And of course, then Janora came aboard and she brings so much great knowledge that I adore the team. I love having you guys here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in every single week. And we will see you next week. And looks like Tangerine is saying you need to go on and put Cashmere Love on your thing. So, all right, everybody. Thank you, Abdul. Thank you, Janora, and everybody out there. I know I've said that 15,000 times, but I just want to make sure I say that one more time. And thank you. All right. Good night, you guys.
Bye, everybody.
Later.
See you next week.